welcome everyone to Rock M Radio. This is the beginning of a brand new episode of Dive Cuts. We've been here for 6 seasons, and now here with the 36th episode of season 6. Of course, here to talk about all your Missouri basketball Tigers. If you're subscribed to this here YouTube channel or the podcast feed, you already got all your fix on Before the Box Score and what those guys had to say, which was a colorful podcast about Missouri football, and which was much more newsy this week, thanks to the Destin meetings. But Missouri basketball's been pretty quiet, so we're going to talk about what's been quiet. I'm your host, Sam Snelling. Make sure that you are subscribed. There's a little subscribe button. I believe it's down on this side. Subscribe and like the post. That way we show up with notifications and you get all your episodes right away. With me, this side, I got to get used to this mirrored camera stuff. This side is Matthew J. Harris. Matt, how are you?
I'm doing well. I just want to take a moment to apologize and send out our condolences to the fan bases in Lexington, on the Plains, in Tuscaloosa, and in Fayetteville. I'm sorry that Kobe Brown has spurned you and has decided to go become a professional. We all know that he was committed to all of your schools simultaneously.
Yeah.
And he's spurned you all and left you in a lurch, and we are so sorry for that. So I just want to take a moment to pass along that just, you're in our thoughts. As portal season winds down, you're in our thoughts.
Yeah, I would. They may be in your thoughts, Matt. I don't really care because as we've been trying to, like, the whole Kobe Brown saga was one of those things that entailed more drama than it needed.
It was actually very boring since April.
I have no doubts whatsoever that there were lots of programs who reached out to, anyone around Kobe Brown and tried to lure him into the transfer portal.
Portal season is tampering season.
We always kind of thought it was very likely that if I think, for me at least, and I think you probably agree, his language changed at that sort of public event at the car. I think it was a Kia dealership thing that he was doing, like a public appearance. He was interviewed by several folks. Gabe Yarman was first person to, I think, kind of tweeted out. Ben Arnett had some video context to it. But in essence, the language sort of shifted from what we believed, which is he wanted to be a first round pick, to where he was focused on something guaranteed. And as you and I both know, and if you've been listening, if you're a long time listener to this show, then you probably know as well that the range of, like, where guys kind of get guaranteed deals, multi-year deals, is in that, like, 45 to 50 range. If you're in the top 45 to 50, chances are you're getting a multi-year deal.
Yep.
And so once he hinted at that versus, maybe looking at first round, which we thought was not likely, although he's getting a little bit more buzz towards that. I still think he's probably like the
mock
high 30s guy.
Yeah, Mox got him in that 38 to 45 range. He's kind of settled in there, which is still a 2 to 3 year guarantee, probably at the rookie minimum. But that's off the CBA. That's going to be at least $1 million to $1.5 million. So he's going to be more than taken care of if he goes in that range. So I think that was always, at least to us, the feeling was, even if he came back to Missouri, or even if Missouri was the only school really in play, as we've said, it was just going to be really hard to make the money work. He was also going to be the oldest guy in the draft pool next year.
He's already like one of, if not the oldest guy in the draft pool this year.
Yeah, he's technically 23.4, 23 and a half years old, basically. Would have been 24 if he'd come back this year. Would have been verging on 25 by the time he got to his first legitimate rookie season. You got to get through 3 years before you can really even begin to look at a rookie extension. So we're looking at 28 or 29 before it would have been at, a second contract. So I the math and what he was going to get from a compensation perspective, I just don't think it would have taken something extraordinary to pull him back to college. And once he started cracking the top 45, just with his age and what he was going to do for to get to a second deal. And the language changed around mid-April, but I don't think that was surprising to anyone who had really been following the draft process here. He had, there was nothing coming out of the combine that made you think he interviewed poorly. There was nothing coming out of reports such as they were from teams that he was interviewing poorly, on team visits. So did his stock, explode into the late first round? No, but I mean, he solidified himself a guaranteed contract. And
anybody who knows, Kobe Brown, been around the program at all the last few years, that should not be a surprise to you at all. All accounts are terrific kid, really smart kid.
Yeah.
I believe he's like an honor roll
3.8
level kid too. Yeah. So like really, smart.
Good, really, really good support network around him. Really, really strong circle around him, advising this.
Very personable. So
had a really, and his agency is Priority Sports, which is highly, highly reputable agency. They don't sign, to anybody. If you're signing with Priority, you're probably a guy that's got legitimate draft opportunities. So he was getting good information. He's got a good circle around him. The performance throughout the draft process was what he needed. So to me, this was really sort of boring. It sort of followed an arc you could see. It was really a question of, was 45 going to be enough for him? And, I suspected it would, but that was pretty apparent by the time we got to May 1. So, but the news that we got yesterday, I don't think surprised anybody that's been paying attention. And honestly, good for Kobe.
It might have surprised a few Kentucky fans, a few Alabama fans, a few Auburn fans, maybe a few Arkansas fans.
Arkansas fans were surprised for a lot of other reasons yesterday. They
had a tough day yesterday.
Arkansas did have a tough day yesterday. And depending on what Bay Fall does, it could always get worse, but we'll see. But we aren't an Arkansas podcast. We'll let them sift through all that wreckage from yesterday. But Kobe.
Well, it was mostly they did get Devo Davis back, but Jordan Walsh. There was some question whether he would come back. He's staying in the draft. I saw on Twitter some quote from him that was not exactly endearing.
Again, like Eli, he would like more context around that. I think that was. If you read the full thing, I don't think that was quite as bad as it was made out. I think it was him sort of being reflective on his mindset and how he played, within Arkansas system. That's always the danger when you snap one quote out of a story. And
like that's also, one of the things that as guys who have seen a lot of Eric Musselman teams, he does tend to, find very specific things that work with his team and tend to focus very hard on them. And a lot of those are probably not like, Jordan Walsh as a ball handler and distributor.
No.
Like that was probably not going to be Arkansas's best offense.
No.
But I think like that's also reflective on sort of where college basketball is versus, the NBA and drafts and development. You would probably take a guy like Walsh maybe 10, 15 years ago, develop him over several years and turn him kind of into that guy. Whereas now with the G League, like you can go be that guy pretty quickly just by becoming a professional.
And in the G League, they're going to give you that confidence. They're going to put you into a system that's going to feature you and give you those opportunities and let you sink or swim with them. So it made sense there. But from the Missouri scene,
what else happened to Arkansas? Like
they lost Ron Holland to the G League Ignite. That had been one where
eliminated them, I think, from his group.
I don't know if he eliminated them, but it's reports are out there that he's looking more to the ACC than he is to Fayetteville. There's questions. Bay Fall has not reported for them. The rest of the guys showed up in Fayetteville last weekend, so Bay's about a week late, and reporters can't get him in his circle on the phone. So that's
he signed in the fall, though, right?
He signed in the fall and is not reported yet. So just what you want. So that's creating some drama down there. But again, we are not an Arkansas podcast. We just occasionally revel in their discomfort. But from Kobe, we could really parse this out, but this was a decision that was coming. We could see it coming down the tracks. Really happy for him. I think, I'm the guy who wrote 4 years ago that he showed up as kind of a black box, and the kid had a bumpy first 2 years, didn't shoot the ball particularly well. I think some of that was role and what he was being asked to do wasn't great, but the last 2 years, he's really, I think, one system change has helped him, but he's put in the work and, become, the player that, I think a lot of us saw the upside of on tape when he was 18. He's become that player. You have to give credit to him. He could have bailed last spring. He could have, gone to a place, I think, where the future was a little bit more certain. He stayed, put in, and bought in. I think that's essential, to a new staff, to have the best guy bought in and, working hard and giving that sweat equity, and it's paid off for him. And that's absolutely awesome to see. And, you hope that it continues for other guys. And it really is a throwback. We talk about how much things have changed. Kobe really is, a guy who 10 or 15 years ago, I don't think we would have been noting how unique he is. But in this climate with, the way NIL and the transfer portal work, he is a genuine throwback. And so it's great to see all that pay off for him, pay off for his family. And, hopefully in a couple of weeks, he's going to have a really, really nice time seeing his name called or hearing his name called.
And it was a nice stretch for Mizzou as well. Like, his development really paid off in a way that I think, you basically have to love it if you're Dennis Gates, because, Kobe allowed you to essentially kind of jumpstart what a lot of people sort of figure was going to be a longer, more difficult rebuild.
Yeah.
But having somebody who was already playing at, an all SEC level, which we know that the all SEC teams are fairly long, but, a guy that was, the person who other teams game planned around, and having that guy in your roster, being able to fill in around him, I think helps, Gates and his staff a lot. And so you have to, be thankful that he stuck around. He played at Missouri, and he helped the program rebound in a big way. So
hopefully he'll be back. We'll get to see him around the program again, and he'll be a fixture and one of those guys that becomes a good spokesman for the program after they move on. But it is now basically impossible to replace him. I think that's something we had all sort of accepted, but Missouri is still doing some roster tailoring at this point. Really late to be dropping off stuff at the tailor's office, but Missouri's trying to make one more addition, it seems like, and it's one we've talked about, or at a spot we've talked about a lot, and that's in the post. They are still trying to find a big person. Still trying. And maybe there is a very, very big person who I believe is still on campus. Yeah.
So we're recording this Thursday evening, mainly because we wanted to make sure we had the Kobe news to talk about. We could have gone a couple nights ago, but figured let's make sure, that he's actually going to stay in the draft. So Thursday night, yesterday it was reported that 7'5" beanpole Connor Vanover, via Oral Roberts, via Arkansas, via Cal, is made his way to Columbia for an official visit. we've talked about Vanover in previous podcasts. I don't know if you and I specifically. I know that Watkins and I talked about him a little bit last week.
Yeah.
As a possibility. I am always leery of like really, really tall, kind of lumbering guys who can be played off the floor. He is that guy in the right context, and I believe that Paul Mills did a good job of finding context. Granted, it's a very different league, but finding good context for Connor and putting him in better positions. Because certainly hedging ball screens is not where you want Mr. Vanover.
No. This is one where I'm sure if he commits, Arkansas fans are gonna invade mentions, slandering him and saying he's terrible. I think a lot, any transfer is really about role and fit. I think Connor Vanover can work in the right system, or if you make the right tweaks. When he went to Oral Roberts, Oral Roberts switches everything. They do get out and they do hedge ball screens, but if it's, a 1-5 ball screen, Connor's in deep drop coverage. And, they're having that guy kind of get out a little bit, and they have some guys pre-rotate from the help side into gaps. So they put some stuff in place to account for that and to account for the fact that, he's not a guy who you can really trust laterally or to recover back. I don't think that's me, speaking ill of the kid. That's what the tape shows. Teams, when he played at Arkansas, attacked the living hell out of him in ball screens. They hunted him. In the Summit, some drop coverage and some smart help tweaks can mitigate that because it's the 24th best league in the country. We're going to start with that negative because I think that's the rub here for Missouri is, when we started the spring, finding a big was about, really, I think, finding a guy who could fit what they wanted to do on the defensive end of the floor. And that was, a guy like Caden Shedrick who could play multiple ball screen coverages, but was still good enough to get back and play in the post. Still had enough, was light enough on his feet he could do that, but still had enough, of a sturdy build that he could play in the block. That's not Connor. You can move Connor on the block. You can play him in space. So we'll start by saying we get it. There are concerns about that end of the floor, but that's why you pay Dennis Gates $4 million a year. That's why you pay the staff more than $1 million a year to figure out how to mitigate those things. And I don't think they're going to do what Eric Musselman did, which is essentially punt and put him on the bench. But I think you need context for why Muss did that. Muss really doesn't play more than 7 guys. And once Jalen Williams was good to go, those minutes were for Jalen and they weren't for anybody else. And so Connor got sidelined and, rebooted last year.
Well, that was also, wasn't that Justin Smith too? And when he kind of got healthy and they started playing smaller with him at the 5, because he was like a 3-4 hybrid at Indiana.
Yeah, they started to go, the last 2 years, really, they started to go smaller at their 5 spot. This year they went back bigger. Well, with the Mitchell twins, you could still kind of attack a little bit in ball screens if you got them in the right spot. It was just Muss is ruthless. In like the best sense of the word, he will optimize his lineup for the very best thing it can do and just beat you to death with it. And that's what he did. And there are guys who, if you don't fit that, there's not pity minutes there. Muss is not just going to throw you 5 to 10 minutes a game to keep you. Muss trusts himself to go into the portal and get someone to do what he needs to do. Connor didn't fit what that vision was. He had to go to Oral Roberts to find a staff that would make some adaptations for him. The question is, if he comes to Missouri, if he commits to Missouri, what does that look like? What does that role look like? What does that fit look like? And to what degree is Missouri going to use him within its rotation? So I think we'll start with the questions first there, because you can't really talk about this potential addition without going at those first. And we hear it, we know what people will say, and there's some validity to it. This is where you trust the creativity of the staff to overcome it. And we'd have to see what they would do, but you can't downplay them. That they exist for a reason.
Well, yeah, and I think as any time that you have been exposed to a player as sort of as much as we were as Missouri fans exposed to Vanover and sort of what Drew Smith and Jeremiah Tillman did with him. Like there's always going to be like a pause. Like one of the reasons why Missouri had success against that Arkansas team was because like Jeremiah Tillman was not fazed by Vanover's size. Drew Smith was not worried about, attacking, downhill against him. And Missouri put him defensively in positions. Again, some of this is kind of on Muss and like what he was doing and asking, a guy with that level of mobility out on the perimeter to do defensively. But there's definitely like one of those things where you are hoping with an up transfer like this that there is the understanding of the staff that they're going to do the right thing with him. They're not just going to ask him to play the same way they asked Noah Carter to play. They're not going to ask him to play like Kobe Brown. Yeah. That what or even like Mo Diarra. Like you can't expect Vanover to come in and even defend like Mo Diarra was able to defend on the perimeter. So I think you're definitely looking at different styles of defense. You're looking at buying maybe some more minutes in the zone. Missouri's shown that they can be pretty tough with the zone defense. And junk it up a little bit. And I think Dennis Gates has sort of shown throughout his coaching career that he's not afraid to sort of be a little bit junky defensively, and just get creative with like the talent he has on hand. I think if they land a guy like Shedrick, you probably see exactly what Dennis Gates wants to be, defensively. They didn't. And so you change what you want to do a little bit. And yeah. I think he's shown, at least in his brief tenure at Missouri and previously at Cleveland State, that he's creative and he'll figure out a way to kind of utilize what he has. So, and this is all saying like, we don't even know if he's going to commit. He might take a minute, might go to Wichita State, see what Paul Mills is talking about, if he's going to fit there. But if he does commit, how he fits, I think it'll be interesting to watch how Gates kind of deploys both him and Carlero, who I think there are also some questions about.
Yeah, what I will say is I like this better than Jimmy Bell. Just that entire sort of process was kind of head scratching because Jimmy Bell, okay rebounder, not a great shot blocker, no skill on offense, grades out worse than Vanover in pick and roll defense. So by almost every account, it made less sense to look at Jimmy Bell than this move. So I think, you can say that they've at least, found someone that's a little better fit. That the upside here is, the thing that I would point out is they were looking at a guy like Jamarian Sharp, who has some mobility, has some, lateral quickness, but can still get attacked in ball screens, can still get moved in post-ups. And Missouri fans for 2 years were salivating over the idea of Jamarian Sharp. And there were real questions about what he could do against SEC caliber bigs on the block and against stronger bigs on the block, to hold position, to box out and win contested rebounds. The one thing that tips this, I think, in favor of Connor Vanover is there's a better offensive fit here. He's a guy who is not a banger on the block. He's not going to be a guy who you're going to run a lot of punch plays for. He's a guy who is going to set screens, pop. He's going to roll, or he's going to slip. You can space him a little bit. He can shoot trail threes. He's going to keep your spacing the way you want, and he can play in some dribble handoffs. He can play in, some actions around the elbow. Again, understanding that this is a guy who, if you look at his history, is probably more of a role guy between 12 and 15 minutes a game. But he can come in and he can, do the things you need him to do to keep the offense flowing, to keep it in rhythm. And the real question is going to be, his shot he's a streaky 3-point shooter. Can you maybe shift him more towards a rim finisher? That's not quite as much of what he was at Oral Roberts. They gave him carte blanche to pull, and he pulled a lot. But he's a better fit, I think, offensively. More developed than Shedrick offensively, and definitely ahead of Jimmy Bell. But that's being balanced against, like we've just talked about extensively, his defensive, what he brings to the defensive end of the floor. And are you, really swapping it out and getting a net push? But I think the bigger deal as well is this, and we can talk about this if you want, is I think it really spares you from getting into some dicey rotations and lineups, in the front court. I really think I would have had reservations if Jesus Carolero was your backup 5. I think there would have been a lot of questions, or there will be a lot of questions if that's the case. Landing, Connor Vanover, I think would help the structure of the front court be a little bit more logical if they can get him in, and understanding that he's buying in to, sort of a reserve role here. But we'll see. We'll see what they come away with.
And at least, reserve kind of minutes, because I think one of the things that, having, somebody who can eat up more minutes at the 5 gives you is it does allow, Noah Carter to, play a little bit more of the playmaking guy at the 4, which he's shown a propensity to, be efficient in that role. And I think it's probably more of a comfort level than him being a true 5.
Yeah.
It also allows you to, mix and match in the front court with, whether it's Noah Carter, Aiden Shaw, or Trent Pierce, and getting guys like, those younger guys more experience in a more comfortable spot. Like not having to find 12 to 15 minutes of center play from, some kind of combination of Aiden Shaw or Trent Pierce or, Jordan Butler, not needing those guys, and then taking, what they provide you, once they sort of show up and get more acclimated.
Yeah. And you can also, I think, put, Jesus more in the 4 spot, where I think he'll be a better fit as facilitating big in that spot. So landing Connor Vanover, presuming that's the goal here, and they wouldn't bring him on campus if it wasn't. I think, we can nitpick and we can have genuine qualms about his game and fit, but on balance, I think it would be a pickup that, we could look at and say, okay, this is a net positive for the program if they can get him in. Again, particularly at this point, because, man, the shelves are empty. The shelves are empty right now. And, if you just look at the potential, performance rating for Vanover, he's probably one of the 4 or 5 best options still on the board right now. And
hey, Evan Mia, BPR loves him.
Yep, and he's one of the top 25 bigs this spring in terms of that BPR rating. So to get a guy like that in early June, that's better than the alternative right now, because after that, once you get outside of Vanover, Olivier Nkamwa, Grant Nelson, you're starting to really have to hope that David Woka, a bench guy for UNLV, could help you. Then you're really getting into either freshmen like Adrama Diange, who we've talked about. You're looking at Isaiah Miranda, who isn't considering Missouri. And then just guys who are really, really, real deep in the weeds here. If Connor Vanover committed tonight, he'd be the 95th big out of the top 110 bigs to come off the board. We're late. This is you can't really nitpick at this point. And on balance, it's it's probably the best you could do right now outside of Kamwa or Nelson at this juncture in the portal season.
So, well, I was asked. In fact, I think you were tagged as well. I don't know. Like Twitter's such a mess these days. I noticed a reply to this tweet, but somebody was asking and had tagged the both of us in a tweet asking about Nkamwa, and sort of like what and I know I've talked to Watkins. Watkins loves the idea of Nkamwa. Was kind of hoping that maybe there was some way to get inroads, but like a lot of the time with these recruitment, like if you're not in early with strong NIL bids early, then you're probably a little late to the party. And while I do think that Missouri not having Kobe Brown come back could make a competitive offer in that arena to maybe try to get in with Kamwa, it does seem like Kamwa has at least reduced his options down to West Virginia, Michigan,
Kansas State, Baylor, and Memphis,
and Baylor and Memphis as well.
Yeah, Memphis is supposedly in there as well. So that's realistically, he's at 5. He's already taken 4 visits. He's, I'm not sure if he will or will visit Memphis or not, but he will have visits to West Virginia, Kansas State, Baylor, and Michigan. I mean, the thought there was Michigan was the leader early on. West Virginia's collective is really, really strong. They've put in, a really, really quality offer supposedly.
They're trying to let Bob Huggins go out on a high note, I believe.
Yeah, they're making a push to have a big spring and to hit big next year. Baylor has had a rough spring. They've lost some guys. They did get Ray J. Dennis today at point guard, but Kamwa would be a really, really good pickup for them. K-State is sort of hunting for that 3-4 hybrid guy to replace Keontae Johnson. So Kamwa's a good fit there for that role. We like him. We love him. We saw him a lot last year. He'd be great to have here, but it's just a question of, if a guy's going in the portal and is already taking those visits, there's been some backgrounding work that's happened there. So I think it's just, even if the money was theoretically there, time is probably short there for him. Same with Grant Nelson. I think Nelson's, far enough along in his process that I think, he's got a sense of what he's going to do. So I think that's the thing we've got to realize here is you sort of have to commit to a path and go to it. And Missouri, waited to see what Kobe would do. He's out, and now you're making the best of it. And Vanover is probably, depending on what you want, if you just wanted a guy that was all defense and rebounding and just straight rim finishing, Dave Nwoko might be there, but this staff values skill at the 5, so it's going to go with Vanover, as that sort of option for them, and they'll figure it out, or potentially go that route. So, Olivier Nkamwa, we'd love to have you, but I just don't think that's going to be a viable option at this point.
Yeah, much sadness to. I don't have the tweet in front of me. Sorry, but I will find it tomorrow and at least let you know that we answered the question on the pod, and also that same answer provides lots of sadness for our dear friend Matt Watkins. He is a big fan of going after Kamwa.
Aspirations died quickly for him. I tried to be modest with Ibrahima Diallo, and he's going to UCF. So we're all sad here. But we're getting down to it here. The guys report by the end of this week. Summer school starts next Monday. June is voluntary workouts. I mean, portal season's about done. We've probably got a week left, and then it's full off-season mode.
Yeah, if guys were going to go in, they're already in. I think there was always going to be that hope that maybe some grad transfers kind of popped here once the deadline passes. But I didn't really see a whole lot of guys kind of going back to school that I thought would be like the answer. That Missouri needed. So I don't even like. Didn't really seem like there was a lot there to begin with. But it does. I mean, it at least looks like if Missouri's got Vanover on campus, there's mutual interest there. If that works out, then I really like.
I think you can be going.
He's not my first choice. Like I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that I'm thrilled with this with how they wrapped up. They're big. Like I think they went hard after the guy that they really wanted. They missed, and they pivoted, and the pivot was
questionable
and Vanover, who come with question marks. I mean, that's I don't think there's any other way around it. We've talked a lot about the question marks with Carolaro, and we've spoken even on this pod at length about Vanover. But I would also point out that if you're an optimist looking for a sort of hopeful finish to whatever conversation is around that, is that there's reason to believe that Dennis Gates is pretty good at this. I don't think very many people picked Missouri to land a top 4 seed in the SEC last year. They did that. It helped having Kobe Brown have the season he did, but also helped having Demoy Hodge have the season he did, and it helped having guys who like really DeAndre Golston. I mean, none of us thought that he was going to be as much of a fixture in the rotation as he was, and perform better than he did at Milwaukee, which is I think
exceedingly
crazy.
Right.
Like that's not normal. And no disrespect to Dree, because I mean I think the course of the season you end up like really just really rooting for guys, and like I had a blast rooting for that guy. Going into the season, I really did not expect him to even be in the top 8, and there he was starting pretty much every game.
Yeah, I think we'll probably do a pod where we just kind of walk through the roster, once it's finalized. But I think the hard part here is really probably 3 or 4 objectives in when the offseason ended. One, this team was really, really depleted in the backcourt at times, and it really, really strained the guys that were available. And I think it handicapped them, in terms of what they could do to find solutions in games, because you really only had 3 to 4 combinations that could work. So they needed depth back. That's one, having a fully available Zay, but I think getting different kinds of guards and not guys that you needed to carry, the water for you, because you were going to have 2 returning ball handlers. You're going to, if you have Zay, you've really got, the guts of a good backcourt right there. You've got 2 ball handlers and you've got a primary scorer. You really needed wing depth, and they got John Tonji, who I still think people are really, really underrating John Tonji as to what he can give this team.
Yes.
Really, really underrating what John Tonji can give this, because he's the first guy in the boat. Really watching him say
he committed so fast, and it's just like, I mean, it was hard to build him up when he commits that fast.
Yeah, but that's there. But they got guard depth, they got different kinds of guards, so they solved that problem. The question's going to be, can the shooting scale and translate? Yeah, but they've got guys who've shown that they can be, at best or at worst, kind of median jump shooters. And in this offense, with the spacing and the way that they've been able to create the quality of shot that they got last year, there's some hope that that'll translate. So they've got some diverse guards to fill out depth and give themselves flexibility. They got some shooting back. Realistically, the other 2 things that they needed were, probably a secondary scorer if Kobe left. And they've, started that with Caleb Love, and then they went and looked at Matt Cleveland. Both of those didn't pan out. But that's hard because, you can, if you're still trying to keep, as we've said before, if you were trying to keep Kobe in the budget, what can you really do for those guys, when somebody else can go full freight there? But you could see why they went after them, because they needed to have, another guy that could just go get them 20 points a night. That didn't pan out. So now you're going to need to have that depth really sort of backfill and collaborate to, provide what you're losing with Kobe. The other thing they needed was a big, whether that was a starter or whether that was a veteran presence that could at least give them rim protection. This group's got to rebound better as a whole. The entire roster has to rebound better as a whole. If you look up and down at rebounding percentages, even from the guards, Missouri was not good at 1 through 5. One guy, one big is not going to solve all your rebounding problems. They've got to do that better collectively, but they needed someone who I think could give them some help on the back end. They had not found that yet. If they can get Vanover in the boat, he has shown at various different levels he can rebound defensively and he can give you some rim protection. There are other issues associated with that, but he has shown at Cal, he's shown at Oral Roberts, and he's shown at Arkansas, he can give you defensive rebounding, and he can give you some coverage as a rim protector. If they get that, they'll have covered 3 of the 4 things they need. And not landing another alpha scorer will make sense, given, the possible NIL constraints that existed. They've done a lot here, but this was not a roster that really needed to go out and get 4 high caliber starters. They maybe needed 1, and then they needed some quality guys to give themselves some flexibility in the rotation. Again, caveat, if they get Vanover, I think they will have done that. They'll have gotten a lot of what they needed to get done this spring. Maybe not on the timetable that we wanted and then, quickly and to be expedited. But if they get most of that work done, I think they're going to be okay going into next year. But we'll do a better kind of breakdown of the roster at some point later this summer.
Yeah, we'll have lots of time. In the meantime, as we're kind of getting close to needing to wrap this up, any 2024s that you're paying particular attention to over the next?
Really paying attention to Dallas Thomas, really paying attention to Honor Bouteng, paying attention to John Bull, paying attention to a guy that I really like. I don't know where he is on the board right now. He's visited, but I thought he had a really, really productive week in the UIBL last weekend. Is T.O. Barrett, a combo guard out of Edmond, Oklahoma. Ran with Team Griffin last year, running with Mocan this year. Really, really like him. Really, really, I think he's a guy in the 120 to 140 range of the composite, a 3 or 4 year guy. But I really thought he had a good weekend. Some scouts who were in Memphis for the EYBL really, really thought he had a strong weekend. I think you probably need to just get a ball handler in every class. I like Barrett. I think he can play either spot. I like him as a point of attack defender. Understands how to play off a really, really good point guard and a guy like Curtis Givens. So he's a guy that if you get a chance to look up some clips of him, go look at T.O. Barrett. He's a guy that I don't think is going to get as much run early, but I thought he had a really nice weekend. So I'll put in a plug for him over the usual names. So
I'm a big fan of Slim after watching some more of him. I thought
very much in fierce mold.
Yeah, I feel like his shot mechanics have really come around. So he's a guy that I would prioritize. And I'll be honest, last fall, he was much lower on my personal list. Guys that they sort of had in. But credit to Gates, and is he a Smith Peters recruit?
Yeah, he's a Smith Peters recruit.
So credit to Kyle for maybe recognizing that. I kind of thought his jumper was a little bit of a mess.
It was a little bit slow
last year. Yeah,
it needed some.
But he's worked on it.
Yeah, it
looks a lot better.
It's a lot more fluid, a little quicker off the release. They've taken a lot of the sort of delay out of it. It gets out of his hand a lot quicker. Guy that I think the debate I think folks will have that I think is, if you really want to get wonky, is do you prefer Marcus Allen or Honor Bouteng? I think if you really, really value guys who are, great defensively and buy into that end of the floor, can finish plays, has an evolving shot, could be a 3-and-D type wing, you'll like Marcus Allen. If you like a guy who I think is going to have a little bit more advanced scoring package, Honor Bouteng is a guy you're going to go with. I know you're a big Honor Wu-Tang guy. So that's one that I would pay attention to. The big man situation is going to be interesting. Jaron Stevenson looks like that's sort of drifting out to sea a little bit.
Yeah, trending down a little bit.
Look, he finally took an official visit to North Carolina this week. It sounds like the question is whether or not they would take him as a reclass right now. They've already taken Elliot Cadeau, a point guard, as a reclass. And it's not the question they don't want Jaron Stevenson. Is he going to be cool with essentially maybe not being quite a plug-and-play featured guy for them this year? But it looks like Alabama...
It's hard to get that big boy in Chapel Hill off the floor unless he's hurt.
Mondo claims minutes. Yeah, he deserves them. John Bull, I think, has looked better. I think if you're watching John, I think you have to understand it's going to be a multi-year process in the offensive end, but hands looks better making contested catches in traffic and trying to get to finishes. Still rim runs his ass off and gets in position for that stuff. Posting is, I think, something you're going to put off for now. But you can see all the physical tools are there for him. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else I watched this weekend that I was really, really keen on. I didn't get to see as much of the 26s or the 25s. Aaron Rowe was not there. Marcus was talented.
26.
I'm not watching the 26s yet. I'm not flipping on the 15U games yet. I
probably won't look at 25s until the fall, if I'm honest.
I'll watch them in Peach Jam probably, just because some of them may come off, may be coming off visits if they've got them. But yeah, I'm not quite into the 25s yet. I'm still trying to get a sense for where the portal season has messed it up. I don't get to see these guys usually in the April period because I'm watching full games of potential transfers. But there's the guys Mizzou's targeting are all really, really good. I think you could make a case that if you could put together your ideal class, it would probably be Bull, Thomas. I would take a guy like Barrett as a ball handler just because I'm with you. I think you got to get a ball handler in every class and a big in every class. And then it's really, the wing of your choice would be the one I want there. But
I think, and I've said this before, if I'm running a program, I try to take a ball handler, a wing, and a post in every class, and get the best one you can, and let the numbers kind of work themselves out. So,
and I'd say
and then if they end up with a 4-man class, I think I think Thomas, Bull, Boateng and Barrett, you could do a lot worse. That's a damn good class.
That's a damn good class if you can put that together.
Anything else you want to hit on before we get out of here?
No, it's even for a slow time.
Want to bring up your Cougs hoodie?
Where Kyle Smith stands here. We always have, man.
I've got I'm sporting Allagash brewery from Portland, Maine.
I'll have to get mine when I'm out there, but no, Watkins and I have our predilections, and Kyle Smith fandom is one of them. So when I went out west, we stopped through Pullman on a drive and had to get my Cougs hoodie. So that's what I'm going with tonight.
Cougs on a hiring freeze.
Pac-12.
I don't know if you know about that, but
I saw that. Tight times on the Palouse.
Who is the Pac-12 director? Is it Larry Scott?
No, Larry Scott's gone. I can't remember who it is, but their new commissioner still can't get a TV deal done.
No. He was the previous.
Oh yeah, Larry Scott,
right? Yeah. So he was basically taking more money than he should have, and distributing the money to schools. Got caught by whoever the rights holder was, and so they froze money going to the Pac-12. So Pac-12 is not like distributing money. So that's why Washington State's like, all right, we're on a hiring freeze, which is cool. That's why the Pac-12 may not be around for very much longer. We'll see. Anyway, we're gonna get out of here. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. If you like this, make sure that you are subscribed to our podcast feed. If you are, then you have already heard probably all the wonderful things that Nate and BK had to say in the most recent Before the Box Score. You can follow Matt on the Twitter sphere at MattJHarris85. You can follow me at CMT Snelling. Follow the flagship, RocketNation.com. Also at Data Mizzou is our boy, Matt Watkins. Follow him as well. He likes to tweet out obscure GIFs, hinting at whatever may be coming down the road.
We do no such hinting. I do no hinting. There's no hinting gifts for me at all. There's just succession gifts. Just succession gifts. That's it.
And those are usually sent to Watkins.
Yeah.
All right. We're out of here. We've said enough. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Have a good night.
Thanks, guys.